Hello, hello.
Hey,
Um, just before we start, I think we're on Facebook, but I don't think we're on Zoom right now. So I don't know if I can.
nice.
I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to press broadcast. See what happens. There we go. Well, I did something. Anyway, welcome everyone to our mental game for performers, strengthening the mental game for performers workshop. I am Paul Almeida. And do you guys want to introduce yourselves? Monice, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Monice Peter. Do I have to add anything or that's it? My name is Monice Peter.
That's great.
On to the next.
Hi, I'm Abraham Asto.
Perfect. Before we start, I just want to acknowledge that this event is being hosted on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. We are honored to work, live, and play on these lands together. I also want to acknowledge, while I pull it up quickly, our sponsor I'm going to read right now. We would like to thank the sponsor of the Arts Club's online workshop series, BMO Financial Group. Okay. Our first thing that I want to say is that a disclaimer that we're not the professionals. This is, as Ashley Corcoran put fittingly, kind of like our book report on the things that we've learned and discovered through our experiences acting and performing under pressure ourselves. So there are professionals that you can go to, and I can give resources to and links and all that fun stuff. But these are just our experiences. And just for housekeeping, if you have any questions, just throw them into the Q&A and we will get them as we go. Cool. So let's jump in. I kind of started diving in headfirst to this mental game world after an audition I had last year, where I was brought in for the lead guy for a musical, and I knew for myself that I wasn't going to get the part. I couldn't sing the part, at least, and so I went in, and my goal was to do a good audition. I could sing it. It was a little high for me, but I knew I could sing it. So I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And I could sing it on the day. I rehearsed the song in the shower, got it. I rehearsed the song in the car on the way to the audition. I was like, still got it. And so then I went in and just like so tense. And I knew immediately that it was gone. Walked up, and all my friends were on the panel. Like I knew the people there. And it didn't go so well. Probably the worst audition of my life. Not anything like the rehearsal I had in the car on the way there. So then my brain went to, what is that I sang this 30 minutes ago in my apartment, and now 30 minutes later, same song, now it's in front of people. What's happening there? And so I went to see a sports psychologist, and I've been working with two, and just kind of grabbing everything and putting it into practice, and the results have been great for me, at least. So for you two, we'll start with Abraham. Did you introduce yourself, Abraham?
I did.
Okay, great.
I'm not forgettable. Thank you.
What is Abraham? So Abraham, we'll start with you. Like, how did you first start becoming aware of the mental game, or whatever that means to you?
You know, it's interesting. Before theater school, I was really confident. Mm-hmm. And going into auditions wasn't really an issue. Even a few years after theater school, there was a great amount of confidence and belief that I could do what I was going in there to do. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if this is a result of age or subsequent events that happen one after the other, but eventually I started going into auditions. And all of a sudden, just like you were saying, I noticed how tense I was getting, how shallow my breathing became, how I could no longer, like in theater school, they talk about breathing into your tailbone, breathing into your glutes. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't even focus on my body enough anymore to get me to that point. Oh. And so it doesn't matter, just like with you, it didn't matter how much I rehearsed it, didn't matter what happened. I could have been working on, for theater, for example, a monologue for a year.
Right.
And as soon as I walk into the room and all of a sudden there are eyes on me and I'm doing it for more than just myself, just everything just diminishes.
Right.
So really, it's been something the last few years that I've been trying to deal with, and I've been trying a few different little things, and I'm still definitely on a journey where I need to learn and overcome it.
Yeah. Well, it's something that you just keep practicing. And I think that's a big thing for actors is you kind of assume that the mind that you have and the way it works is kind of how everyone's works. But for different reasons and different upbringings and different childhoods and different whatever it is, people think differently than you. And some people are just more efficient that they don't have those whatever they are, anxieties, fears, insecurities, those things. So when I think it's a big thing for athletes in sports, but I think when actors and performers, stand-up comedians, whatever, musicians realize that it's something you can practice, it kind of opens up a whole new world, as it did for me. So yeah, and it's something you just keep working on. What about you, Monice?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like, I'm a pretty confident person. I'm pretty confident in my skill as an actor. Definitely meditation is big on my list of like how to focus the mind.
Yeah.
And also just things like, you know, what is an irrational fear? Like Brene Brown, like talking, like saying, how, like putting your fear, giving it a name, talking to it and saying, okay, I recognize that you're here. I'm just gonna, you can stay here if you want, but I'm just gonna do my thing. So, but I think it's the same thing with Abraham in terms of, for some reason, as I'm getting older, for some reason, I'm like, I have stage fright, not severe, but I have stage fright. And when I haven't been auditioning for a while, I get audition anxiety. So usually the first audition after not auditioning for a while is like, I'm not going to get it. It's it's a practice. It's a practice to like remember how to do this again.
Sure.
but yeah. And then once I get into the rhythm, it's all about the rhythm too. When I was first in Vancouver, I would just audition. The more I did it, the more that was part of the job instead of it being about getting the job. It was just part of the job. So
Right. Yeah. I don't, again, want to sound like I'm the one with all the answers, because I go through all this too. Like, I film a self-tape and I'm the one in my head just because the camera's turned around. So I'm the one who will like throw in all the stuff that I've learned, but don't take it as the one that I have it all figured out. But I've learned to break down the mental game kind of into two parts. And I've learned this from, it's a baseball coach. I relate a lot of things to sports just because of how I grew up. And he's a baseball coach of a long, long time. And so I can relate to it easily, I find. But he breaks it down into two chunks, which are the process and what is the process of mental game? What does that even mean? What's your approach? And then how do you practice it? And so to break down those two things. So it's the process. Like, if I said to you, Abraham, like, what's your process mentally for, let's say, an audition, just for a simplicity's sake, you have an audition, and mentally, what's your process? And if you don't have one, that's an acceptable answer too.
When it comes to preparing for the audition?
Sure. Or like you're in the room, or you're in the waiting room.
So what I try to do, I try to overcome the shallow breathing. I try to focus on my body. I try to remember my objectives. When I get into the room, I try to take as much time as I can, because there's that nervous energy that's still in there, right? So I'll take a little longer moving the chair to where I want to put it, you know what I mean? And the entire time I'll try to breathe real slow and just let it out. And even something I started doing recently is I try to expel all that extra energy. And so in an audition room, you can't do push-ups and you can't really, exercise in the bathroom or whatever, right? So I try to, I don't know, I'll push against the wall to just get that energy out, or I'll hit myself in the chest a few times.
Yeah.
Just to get rid of that nervous.
Cool.
nervousness, yeah.
Yeah. So like intuitively, you do all the things that's interesting enough. Like intuitively, or your body knows what to do, but I'll just put a label on it, I guess, of what I learned is. So the breath is the first part of it. So the process is about what do you need to do right now to have the best audition of your life? And so first, I guess you need to define what would be the best audition of your life. For me, it has nothing to do with whether I get the job or not. It's more, how do I feel coming out? Did I accomplish what I wanted to? Was I distracted or was I focused? That's what defines the best audition of my life. Sorry, turning my sound off. So in order to do that, I think you need to have 3 or a small amount of constants that you can be in control of. And so the first one, like you talked about intuitively, is your breath. Why your breath? Because your breath puts you in the moment. It's what's happening right now. Monice referred to meditation, and we'll get to that because it's a huge part of it. And it's how you practice it. But breath is that's happening right now. Your mind loves to be in the past of last audition, I forgot my lines, or in the future of what if I get this job, or if I forget my lines, or there's fears on every side of it, but the breath just brings you to right now. So that's the first part of it for me, of my constants. And the second one is, what are you going to focus on? So he calls it, Alan Jagger calls it the focal point. So in acting, I mean, it's fairly simple. I made it your objective in the scene. What is my objective? My objective is to win the girl over. Okay, great. So that's my focal point. And then now that's it. My mind has an intention, it has something to focus on, and now we need to go get it. So attacking it. So the 3 constants. So for me, that like a tactic. What's my first tactic? What's my first line? And so then you have your 3 constants that you have decided will lead to the best audition of your life. You can't control the result, but it will lead to the best execution of what I want to do. Breathe, focal point, attack. So you talked about the moving the chair bit, and I love that because that's what I do. They're like, do you need anything? And I say, no, 1 second. And then that's the moment where right there, you just breathe. What's my focal point? Here we go. And then I'm ready to go. And then once you have those 3 constants, everything else is just drama. Everything else is whether the director or the producer is there, if it's too early, if you're on stage, if your agent's in the audience, if it's a matinee versus an evening show, the last show of the week, opening night, closing night, first day of rehearsal, if you're doing a scene with Denzel Washington, or you're doing a student film versus you're doing a Broadway audition versus community, it doesn't matter. Because all that matters is those 3 constants: breathe, focal point, attack, and then we go. And so that's what's helped me tremendously, because just there's so many variables that you can get thrown at you. And when you have those 3 constants, it just simplifies everything that you could do repetitively.
So then for an actor walking into the room, let's say they have their objective, I'm not going to speak for all actors. I'll speak for me just to make it more direct. I have my focus and I have my tactics, but the breathing is still shallow, and I can't seem to get my mind around that, and I can't seem to take my attention away from this is being judged for work. I need to land this for money. It's the stuff that sits, to earn my rent. It's the stuff that sits in your subconscious. How do you eliminate that subconscious thing that you're not even aware of?
Right. So then that goes to perfect segue. It's like we rehearsed this. That goes into the second chunk, the second part of it, which is how do we practice that? And that's really the key, is that you can't expect to not do any work and then just show up in the room like a monk when you haven't done any work on it. It's you're not going to expect to show up and know your lines if you haven't rehearsed your lines. Alan Jagger likes to say, if you agree, he says it for baseball, but it applies pretty easily. If you agree that acting in this case is at least partially mental once you get on stage, and you're learning your lines and you're blocking and your choreo and all that stuff, but you're not doing the mental rehearsal, then you practice, the rehearsal is kind of incomplete because you're skipping a big chunk. So Monice, if I was to say, like, what would your, and you can add, those are mine, but if I was to say, Monice, like, what would your constants be that you need to lead to the best audition of your life? Or what does the best audition of your life look like? What would you say? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Honestly, what has been successful in the past, I would have to say, would be a form of visualization, and also.
Man, you guys are leading me right through my points. This is great. Keep going.
Sorry.
No, it's great. I don't have to segue anything.
Yeah, I would say it would be a little bit of visualization and a lot of throwing it away. Like, I've had some big auditions for some big stuff, and the best thing I can do is go, oh, well, that was fun. Like, I don't know. I don't know how I got there. Maybe it is visualization, or maybe it's just like a practice of not holding on to anything. Because sometimes when I really want an audition, or I really want the part, I know that I do have a bad audition. I know that I'm not going to get the part, even though I want it. But the other ones that I have been successful are the ones where I really just show up and do the work. Like, showing up, if I can just show up in everything, that includes everything. That includes the shallow breathing, that includes the fear, that includes being scared, that includes being happy. Like, if I can give everything, if I can just be a whole person in the room, then those are the best times I've had an audition, and I usually get the part.
Yeah, well, you just touched on a big one so another sports psychologist I work with, Saul Miller, he did a webinar with me in the past, but his big thing is, if you love what you do, then that's the driving force, because you'll want to work on it. You'll want to be in the room. You'll want to show people what you do. And that's where the power lies. So you touched on that, which is great. Yeah, that's absolutely a constant of, like, I like doing this. I think we forget that with all the stress of, like, I have to do this song. Oh yeah, this is fun. But then just to go back for a second, you said, or what Abraham said, I think you guys connected there, of the reason why we get nervous and the anxiety comes, there's a fear of, you just want to do a good job. That's, like, a lot of mine come from there, of, like, I really want this to go well. I want to do well. And so that, it tightens everything up too. So the visualization is a big chunk of that. How do you get rid of those thoughts? Abraham said, so that comes with the practice. And how do you practice that? So there's a ton of ways you could practice that, but I found it's something as simple as 10 minutes a day. And the practice is that this is how you change the foundation. You change the infrastructure, I guess, of how you think and how you react to things, and being better once you get in the room. It's all the practice beforehand, so that you do this 10 minutes every day, 15 minutes every day, and then you show up on opening night, and now you just do what you've always done. It's the same 10 minutes that you do, and then nothing's really different. So the 10 minutes a day, the way I look at it is, you start off with just, like, big breaths, just to get into it, basically. Start with, like, big deep breaths, and you can, like, YouTube this. You can YouTube guided meditations, resources, like Google and YouTube are your free friends, and use them like crazy. But this is just what I do. This is what works for me, is take big deep breaths, and then that gets you into it and into the moment. We're going to start something, and then scan your body for tension. And I like to start at the feet because it's furthest away from the head, and you just tense up the muscles in your feet, and then exhale and release it, and work your way up the body. Tense all the muscles in your butt, release, and just feel if anything changes and work all your way up. And then you kind of go into practicing the focus part is where I like to do. And that's the breath. So people, when they can't sleep, people are always told to count sheep. And again, it's like, it's intuitively what to do because people can't sleep because they're anxious or thinking about other things. And it's something to focus on. So I like to count breaths. And this is like a staple of all meditation. And I get that meditation has kind of a bad, it's not a bad word, but everyone just kind of goes like, oh God, because I was like that, because you're expecting like, but it's not that at all. It's just practicing how to focus. And so I like to write numbers on a chalkboard in my head. So I inhale and that'll be a 1, and I'll exhale and that'll be a 2, and I'll just draw it on a chalkboard in my head, or I can picture it. It's whatever you want to do. And that can be 20 breaths, that can be 50, that could be 1,081. It's however long you want to go. And other thoughts come in and you just acknowledge them. Yeah, it's great, but I'm doing this right now because I want to practice my focus. And you complete your number counting. And then that's when I go into the visualization part. And so Saul Miller that I talked about, he's North America's one of the leading sports psychologists. And so he says the visualization is 3 different images. So he has goal images. So what do you want to accomplish? So I'm going to put you on the spot and make you say this, but Abraham, if I was going to say, like, what's one of your goals? And it can be a daily goal. It could be a midterm goal of like something you want to accomplish this year, or it could be like a long-term goal. Like I want to win an Academy Award. Like give me one.
One of my goals is to book roles regularly.
Great. Yeah. So I think they would say be specific. So like on TV, in theater.
Yeah, on TV.
Yeah, great.
Absolutely.
So you would then like see yourself going into the room, pick a casting director in Vancouver. You go into Jackie Lynn's office, you go into Candace's office, and you're booking the job, and you've seen yourself do it. Saul Miller has a great quote that I'm trying to find now of we get more of what we think about. That's how he puts it. And I like that because you create in your mind beforehand what you want to experience in the performance. So goal imagery is one of them. The second one is the knowing what you're doing when you're at your best. So I'll throw this one to Monice. So don't be humble. When you're at your best performing, what is one or 2 things, just for the point? He says do 6 to 8, but I'll ask both of you. So Monice first. What is one thing that when you're performing at your best, you are what?
When I'm performing at my best, I can actually see the other person. Like oftentimes I might be like, when you look at someone's forehead, you're not actually looking them in the eyes.
Yeah. You're listening.
Yes, I'm listening, but I'm actually like looking at, and I'm taking them in, and we get to move in simpatico. How do I test that? I don't know if you can test that because then you're outside of yourself, but I don't know.
But you're listening. Sure. That's a good one.
I'm listening.
Yeah. And so that would be one of yours. Abraham, like what would be one of yours?
Oh, what am I doing when I'm at my best? Yeah, I mean, that's a big one, listening.
Sure. Yeah. One for me is when I'm at my best, I'm not thinking. Like I'm just when I'm at my best, I leave the stage and I'm like, I don't know what I said out there. And that's kind of, it's kind of like when you drive home and then you get into the garage and you're like, I'm not really sure I stopped at any red lights. But you did. Like, you don't have to worry about the mechanics of it. You did it. And so that's, for me, that's one of them. I'm not thinking. And so the visualization part 2 is when I'm at my best, and list 6 to 8 of them, and don't be humble about it. When I'm at my best, I'm energetic. When I'm at my best, I'm listening, reacting, in the moment, all those things, and know them, and then go over them and visualize that. And then the third one he has is stimulating imagery. And these don't take very long. It takes 40 seconds, 20 seconds to visualize yourself going into a casting thing, moving the chair, taking your breath, and delivering your lines and walking out. It takes 20 seconds. And then these 6 to 8 things takes another, it doesn't take very long is the point. But the third one is stimulating imagery. And that's creating an image in your mind that gives you power. I'm going to throw a link. I know Facebook is a different thing, but I'm going to throw a link in this chat of Saul's YouTube channel. And basically this stuff is all from there. I don't feel bad about giving this stuff away. Saul charges a lot of money that you can use your equity benefits to help him. But it's all in these YouTube videos, so I don't feel bad regurgitating them, I guess. But the third one is stimulating imagery, and that's so he likes to pick an animal. So if I was to give you what's an animal, Monice, that gives you power when you think in your mind?
Some sort of cat, so like a lion or like a cheetah.
Yeah. What about you, Abraham?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that, or even a horse.
Yeah, 95% of people choose like the big cats: lions, tigers, panthers, jaguars, cheetahs, and it's because they're predators. And so that's not to say you have to do every scene like with the predator thing, but as the actor walking into the room, you're the predator. And the metaphor there is the predator, when it goes out to hunt, it's not caring what other people thinks. What that sentence didn't make sense. It doesn't care what other people think. There we go. It has purpose, it has focus, it's assertive. And if it doesn't get the whatever it's the prey, it's not like, oh man, it's just on to the next one. Right? There's no self-judgment. So that's where finding the animal, and the animal works for some people. Michaela loves the animal thing. It doesn't quite work for me. I love the image of a person. Like when I think of like Kawhi Leonard in the NBA finals, like that for me is like someone could foul him. He could be at the foul line to win the game. He could just miss a shot, and dude's got like the same face the whole time. And I love that. He's just like on to the next thing.
No, that's interesting. That makes me think of Beyonce, for example, when she creates the alter ego of Sasha Fierce.
There you go.
Apparently the story is that's how she found her confidence and that strong persona that was able to carry her through.
Yeah, it's huge. And so, there's people that you have in your brain when I say that, of like animal works for some people. I think some people like objects, like a good one for actors that always get nervous is like a rock, not like Dwayne Johnson, like The Rock, like a rock in the ocean, and just like it doesn't matter how many waves just like smash onto the rock, it's just like it's there and nothing's going to break it. So it's whatever stimulating image, and you pick that image, and that could change every day. You can put it as the wallpaper on your phone, whatever. And that's the third part. We're still in the mental rehearsal thing. And you just think about that animal, and you attach that to your scene, or you attach that to your visualization of the audition coming up, or whatever it is. And then you take a couple breaths, and you're done the rehearsal. And that took 8 minutes, 10 minutes. And so those are the two things to sum it all up from the beginning of that's the mental game, as Alan Jaeger says it, is what is your process, breathe, focal point, attack, and then how do we practice it? And it's just the 10 minutes a day, and then I just kind of combined Saul's and Alan's and put them all together. But those resources, they're everywhere. YouTube guided meditation. Some people like someone guiding them through it, and like today when I did it, I just like Apple Music, waves, go, and then I'm just done when I'm done. Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts on any of those things?
I have a question.
Sure.
Unless you want to jump in. No. So when you're visualizing yourself entering the room,
mm-hmm.
how do you visualize yourself? Are you seeing just your hands and your body, like how you see yourself a lot in, in life?
Yeah.
Or do you actually see yourself as an entire person from behind, as in a
Like
dream?
third person or first person kind of thing?
Right.
Yeah. It's,
I actually like feel myself in the room too. Like I visualize feeling sitting on the chair, and I can feel it in my live body, and I feel like I'm there. That's how I do it, but I guess it's different for everybody, like however you want.
yeah. Well, what I've gathered is that it doesn't matter. It's whatever works for you and whatever's most, what's the word? The most powerful, the one that works best for you. Um, but, and you kind of talked about, did I freeze for a second? No, the one that you kind of touched on, Monice, is they just say, be specific and use all five senses. So when I walk into the room, whether it's third or first person, it doesn't matter is the easy answer, Abraham. But when I walk into the room, what do I see? What do I hear? What am I smelling? What does the chair feel like when I touch it? All that sort of thing. And just be specific. And that's kind of what the go-to is for the visualization. But there's no right way to do it. It's just, yeah. And you can find these again. YouTube is your greatest ally. YouTube guided visualization for actors. I'm sure it exists. I haven't looked it up, but it exists. And actually, there is a Broadway actress named Emily Fletcher who started a meditation company called Ziva, I think. And Ziva meditation, it costs like a hell of a ton of money. But when you sign up for the little newsletter, you get a free 20-minute guided meditation, and I can link that somehow. I will by the end of this. I'll link the file, or you can just go do it yourself and then unsubscribe. Whoops. Yeah, and it's 20-minute guided meditation. It's great. It's very in-depth, and yeah, so that's a good resource. Emily Fletcher, Ziva meditation, or you can just do the course.
I take an improv class in Toronto, and Kate
Winslet.
No, I'm forgetting her last name. Oh my goodness. But she incorporates meditation in her class. And like, I've never witnessed that in any acting class or in any, in drama school, obviously you do your voice and your movement. And thank you, Kate Ashby. They know. Yeah. And I think you learn that stuff in order to do exactly what you're talking about, get into the mental game. But the fact that she actually incorporates it into a class is like
a great way. Well, it's kind of like that. You hear visualization, you hear meditation, and it's kind of that like hokey pokey pie in the sky. You're like, okay. But then for me, at least, this is how I was like, okay, do I really have to meditate? I'll do anything but meditate. And then you go like Serena Williams, LeBron James, Denzel Washington, Robert De Niro are like, I meditate. Kobe Bryant, his big thing was like 30 minutes of mindfulness at the beginning of the day. And then you're like, well, there's got to be something to it. And so you do it. And then this goes back to Abraham's original question is, so then you go into the room after doing all that work for days, weeks, months. And then not that it's not there, but if nothing else, you're at least able to go, okay, I'm not focused, and come back in, or those thoughts are less. And so now we'll get into Saul Miller's things, which Saul is big on that that stuff. That's a bad word, but that area of what do you do when you have tension in the moment. And so for me, I could never figure it out. Like I said, when I'm at my best, I'm not thinking. And so then the negative thoughts come in, the anxieties, worries, fears, insecurities, all that stuff. What if I forget my lines is a big one. What is the panel going to think, which is kind of redundant because, you can't do anything anyway. But anyway, So the metaphor, the analogy I made up or thought of was like when you're in a car and it's a super, super hot day and your car's really hot, you don't wait for the heat to go away. You don't remove the heat. You add the air conditioning, right? So when I'm performing and I'm not thinking when I'm at my best, but then the negative thoughts come in, I can't just take away the negative thoughts. I have to add the positive thoughts, is how I came up with it. Things are happening around Monice.
Yeah.
I think, did you put yourself on mute? Oh, something's happening. We're good. All right.
Kicked out? No.
Monice is getting kicked out of the BMO.
It's like watching a silent comedy from the 20s.
Where was I? Oh yeah, the focus. So when you can't, that's the analogy I came up with. It might be completely ridiculous, but when your car's super hot, you can't just like take away the heat. You have to add the cold air. And so that's when you're having the negative thoughts, but you want to get to thinking of nothing and being in the moment. You have to add the positive thoughts. So that's how I come at it. And so you have to redirect your focus. And so that goes to Abraham's question of I got to get this job for rent, and they have to like me and have to blah 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 blah. And so I'm going to pull up a little graphy graph that's in Saul's book, Performing Under Pressure. You should read that one. So he pulls up this. I should share my screen in BL 2020, but I'm just going to do this. So he talks about on this side over here is what is it? Oh, performance. Performance is like on a scale of 1 to 10, and emotional intensity are the two axes there. And so as emotional intensity goes up to like a 7 or an 8, that's when it peaks. But then it starts to dip the other way, if you see that. So emotional intensity being, if you're now too excited, too anxious, then performance also starts to drop. So if you're on the first side of it, you just have to like ramp yourself up and get going. But not many people have a problem with that. It's this side of it when you're too anxious and performance starts to suffer there. And this graph, when he showed me, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. I just goes back to my original story of just too tense, and I want to do too well and show them all the things how good I am. And that's when it's also detrimental. So how do you deal with that? So his thing, and again, these are in those YouTube videos in the link there. If you're on Facebook, it's Dr. Saul Miller on YouTube. You'll find it. He has a whole bunch of videos. And so he talks about two things. He talks about, well, conscious breathing is what he calls it, and that's the visualization stuff. But he talks about attention release. So the easiest way to explain it is you're having those thoughts, you're responsible for the thoughts. You don't and this is like a sports psychology staple of like, you're responsible for what happens. And so you have to change that program in your head. And so he says, shake it out and then take a big exhale, use that breath of and let it all go and breathe it out. And now you have like a split second where you've let everything go. And then that's when you have to change the program in your head. So Saul says, you're responsible for the computer and the images on it. And so that's when that stimulating image comes into play. So, and that can change. So, or words. So let's say Monice picked the lion or the tiger. Abraham picked the lion, the horse, something. Yeah. So you're in the audition, you're having those thoughts, you have that moment right before you start, breathe everything out. And then that's where that mental picture goes of the lion or a word. I like to use the word like, I got this, I can do this. And so that's where that goes. And then you take a breath on that. So to sum that all up, because I just spoke for 12 minutes on one sentence, is you're having the negative thoughts, breathe it all out, have the new thought that you put in, breathe into it. And that's how you take your power back. And it's one of those like, okay, but when you're having those thoughts and you can't really get out of it, and what do you do in the moment? You have to have the practice that you've done, the mental rehearsal to back it up, like reps in a gym. The more you do the workouts, the more then you walk around at a stronger place than if you just did the one workout and called it a day. But then in the moment, using that tension release reflex, he likes to call it, that's huge, of redirecting the focus. And so that's how I, to go back to the analogy, throw the air conditioning in to get rid of the negative. Does that all make sense? Do you have any things to add to that?
No, I have oftentimes when I'm about to go on for a scene, I'm backstage, I run through the lines in my head and I go, I forgot everything. I forgot all my lines. I forgot them. Even though I've rehearsed it and I've done the show for like 2 months already, I forgot it. And then I just go, take a breath, don't run the lines anymore, and know that as soon as I step on stage, everything will be fine. I have to just know that everything will be, and even if I did forget the words, who cares?
Mm-hmm. Well, then it like connects a great thread right through everything we've talked about, of like, you're going over the lines of like, what'll happen if it doesn't matter about the mechanics. When I'm at my best, I'm listening, and I just need to breathe, remember that I love this. What am I focusing on? Go get it. And the lines will be there. It's absolutely it. Yeah. And it's so easy to say. But it's just goes back to those constants, and then you don't have to worry about the drama.
It's easy to say, but at the same time, I've been doing this for a while. And as I said at the beginning, like, I'm developing, I hope I'm not going to continue to develop this, but I'm getting like stage fright as I continue to do this. And if I'm doing a show over a long period of time, I'm not getting more comfortable being on stage. I'm actually getting more uncomfortable. Like I'm starting to become afraid. And so that's the mental game. That's all I can do at that point, because, and I'm not quite sure where that comes from. So I'm not sure if you have.
Well, no, I was going to say that's the professional. That's where they would dig into all the things and what's happened. Abraham talked about the subsequent things that might have happened. I think it's in there somewhere that I'm definitely not qualified to answer, and I don't know. I know it usually comes from a fear of something.
Failing, probably.
Yeah, failing, or what happens, fear of doing well, fear of wanting to do well, all those things, right? And they all just pile on, and they all manifest in different ways. There's expectations. I'm reading this book by Harvey Dorfman called The Mental Game of Baseball. Like I said, I like the sports analogies. They transfer very well to acting, but Harvey Dorfman is basically the founder of sports psychology. He was like the first ever sports psychologist hired by a baseball team. And he has a whole chapter on expectations. And so that is, like we talked about, you being in control of the situation. And expectations are when you, like Monice, like you start to do really well, and now you booked a big show, and now people expect you to be good, right? So then that thought enters the mind. I have the thought sometimes of like, oh, I just booked this recurring thing. Now when I go in for this day player thing, I should get this now. And that thought is not at all helpful. And so those expectations are from hypothetical things in your brain that like aren't even real thoughts, but you've decided that people are thinking that, or maybe people are actually thinking that, and you got a review that says, I've seen Paul be better. And then it always just goes back to, what are you going to focus on, and what am I in control of? So, people don't read reviews, or they do read reviews. I just choose to ignore it. But
I love reviews.
and some people do, yeah. I don't read them, but I just don't care, because it's not what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on me. But The Mental Game of Baseball, Harvey Dorfman, another great resource. there's a whole
Can
chapter.
you say it? Can you say it again? I think somebody in the question asked to say what the book is called.
Oh, can you name the book again? Yes, I could type the answer to you. The Mental Game of Baseball. I think it's H.A. Dorfman, but let me type it up. And it is on iBooks, and I have a real copy because why not? But The Mental Game of Baseball is great. It's the best book I've read on it, and this panel's at the just like too early because there's a whole chapter in here on visualization and relaxation, and I haven't gotten there yet. So.
Just adding to everything that you said, it's amazing how our body stores trauma from the past that we're not even aware of. So, for example, as soon as we get into our heads or subconsciously, our body responds a certain way because, we get anxious because we think, we're going to fail or we're going to get rejected or someone's going to respond a certain way. It's because subconsciously it has happened to us in the past. Yep. And our circuitry works to protect us from that happening again. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, but again, it's so easy to say, focus on the present, focus on these objectives. We really have to be resilient in fighting against the habits that our bodies have created that put us into that space. Yeah. And as soon as the chemicals in our brain shoot up, like the way we see things, our chemicals are here, but the way our brain and our body responds, the chemical shoots up to here. And we have to clock being aware of that difference and trying to bring it back down and fight against what our habitual response has been in the past.
And like, where does that come from? Past things, probably childhood thing. I don't know. That's the psychology of it that I don't know. All I know is I can work on them and practice them now so that I can redirect focus and change those things when it happens. Someone once said to me, I don't know how true it is, but take this for what it's worth. Someone said to me, you're not the thoughts that happen inside your head. And that was like, because those thoughts come in that you're like, I don't deserve this. I'm not even the best one here. And like all that shit. And then you're like, where does that come from? It's like, I want to do this. So you have to keep like beating it down.
That's why I read the reviews, because if the good ones are true, then the bad ones are also true. So you just have to, it's all a mental game. It's not really, it's just an opinion. And I just wanted to say one thing too, that, artists especially can take on is like substance abuse, in terms of like, when I get into these stages of, you can call it like imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. I have to be really aware, of my alcohol intake, and I have to be like, okay, why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. Am I doing this to why? And then once I become aware of the habit that I'm doing, I got to stop, because it's not good. Yeah. And it's better to do to change the chemicals of my body with breathing and meditation and visualization, and not with any sort of drug or whatever.
Yeah. And I guess that's how that road starts. I don't know. I've been fortunate. I have not experienced that, but I imagine it's because those thoughts happen. And we've all been in the situation where, you have like one drink and you're like, I wish I was like this in the audition room. And then you're like, that's a dangerous game, because then you're like, I want to be this free, so therefore I must. But that's the negative way to go about it, as opposed to working from the inside out. And this is all the breathing stuff. And I think it's just more applicable. It's easier to breathe than it is to bring something into the audition room.
Do you have time to answer this question that somebody said a while ago?
Oh, I have no questions in my Q&A. Is there?
There's just one that says, is there anything, you see it? Oh, yeah. I'll just read it. Is there anything that the creative team in the room can do to support your practices before, during an audition?
That's a great question. I guess we can all answer that. If anyone has one off the top of their head, go. I think for me, and this of course is just a personal thing, is like my fear, my nervousness comes from the I get one shot at this. So I'm going to name her because it's a good thing. I went in for Kinky Boots, I think that's good. And Barb Tomasic was directing it, and she said, "Let's just do one for lines, and then we'll do it." And I was like, "That's great. Let's do this." And so you spit the lines out, and you're like, "That was terrible." But it's that like reassurance that well, I will also qualify it by saying it's my responsibility to be ready on the first time, but you can't throw it to, well, the director only gave me one take. That's not the way to go about it. But that being said, if the option is there to like, that's why people always want to do it twice, because you're like, okay, yeah. I don't even know what words I said on that one, but I was not focusing on what I should be focused on. Let's go. Let's do it for real. I just needed to say the words in the space. So I guess that would help me. That would probably be the big thing, knowing that, yeah, I have more than one kick at the can at it. Do you guys have a response to that?
I'm not sure what the question is referring to. The creative team, as in the people in the audition room.
Yeah, like
so.
I guess it's like the director, choreographer, whatever, artistic director, what they could do if they were in the room to ease the pressure. I guess that's another way of phrasing the question.
I think for theater, anyways, this definitely doesn't happen in film and TV. What many artistic directors have done with me is they'll sit down with you for the first 5 minutes and they'll have a conversation with you. And
yeah,
the idea is to get your mind off of the audition. And so it's crazy. As soon as that conversation ends, sometimes I'll be like, oh no, I'm back to where I was.
Right.
But yeah, having them, talk you through it if that's easy to do. But in film and TV, I don't know, man. I mean, there's not a lot of freedom or opportunity.
No, it's so quick. I guess the difference now in this world is that you're going to be sending in self-tapes, so you get as much time as you want. Callbacks would probably be live through Zoom. I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, film and TV is like, all right, come on in, do your thing, get out. So it's kind of quicker. But yeah, the 5-minute talk, I like that.
Yeah, I don't actually know. I'm like, let's scrap auditions and just talk, and that's what I would do. But I'm not on that end, so I don't know what they actually want from if it's just to be like talent, then like read the resume, I guess. But if it's to like, who do you work best with? What team can you assemble?
Yeah.
But that's not realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's a very interesting discussion. I'm sure you could talk for. I'm sure a bunch of people listening to this have a good answer to that. But we have like 5 minutes left or less. If you have any questions, shoot them through super quickly, and we'll do our best to answer with what we know. Yeah, to sum up, mental game. What is your process? Find your constants that you need to have a good performance, audition, whatever you want to do, and then practice it. Just like you are practicing your lines and your choreo, and just like in the gym, reps. That's what builds the foundation. Do those things, and then do the visualizations, even though you think they're dumb, because it works. Cool. If no one has any other questions and you guys have nothing else, then I think we could be done. Let me try and share that Emily Fletcher thing. How do I even put that in here? Can I put it into the chat? I can't find it. That's okay. Google Emily Fletcher. I can't do it. I can't share a file at least. So Emily Fletcher, Ziva Meditation, if you want that one, but also YouTube is great. The book was Harvey Dorfman. Saul Miller is the sports psychologist. He's from North Vancouver, so you can go see him. Or he does Zoom. And Alan Jagger is the other one. He has a podcast that he goes on a lot. it's very baseball driven, but it's all the same stuff. And cool. I hope that was super helpful for everyone, and somewhat valuable for people. And that's it. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Monice is on mute.
No, this was great. Yeah.
Cool.
I think this should be helpful for a lot of people and for me.
Yeah.
I hope.
Super helpful for me.
Yeah, helpful. And it's good to talk. Sometimes you don't get to talk openly about this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I love talking about this type of stuff, like practice. Sometimes people say, don't talk about the practice. It's the magic of the actor. And so don't give it away. Don't spoil how you can have a good performance or whatever. But I think it's important.
It's just interesting that some people can put on that performance and there's a whole other dialogue happening inside their head. And some people can do that same performance and they're totally in it. And I guess that's finding that what works for you is the key. So do the homework and go do some good performances. We will see you all later.
All right. Ciao.
Bye.
Oh, wait, there's one more question.
Oh.
No, never mind. It's not a question. All right.
Goodbye, everyone.